Shalom Aleichem, friends of the Sephardic congregation of Hellendale. This week I'm going to do something a little bit different. Rather than answering the question, I want to share with you an idea that I had at the end of the parasha last week, which also runs into the parasha of this coming week, Parashat Vaeira. The idea that I had is as follows. It says that Hashem sent Moshe Rabbeinu to go to Paro and to warn Paro and to ask Paro to send the Jewish people out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Paro, and Paro only makes life more difficult for the Jewish people. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns around to Hashem and says the following words: Vayashov Moshe el Hashem vayomar. Moshe Rabbeinu returned to Hashem and he said, Adonai, lama hareota lama ze shelachtani. God, why did you cause such negativity to befall this nation? And why did you send me in the first place? Umayaz batir Paro. And from the moment that I went and approached Paro, ledaber b'shmecha, to speak in your name, heira la'amazeh, things have only got worse for this nation. Va'atzel lo etzalta et amecha. And you have not saved your nation. These seem to be very harsh words that Moshe Rabbeinu directs towards God, towards Hashem. And the question is, was Moshe Rabbeinu correct in attacking Hashem in such a way? Our sages teach us, many opinions in the Midrashim say that in fact, Moshe Rabbeinu was out of line in his attack. And they say that in this coming week's parasha, which we're going to read in Parashat Vaeira, Hashem turns around to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, all the forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, they never questioned, they never second-guessed my attributes, the way I run the world. And you come and you second-guess them? This seems to be the criticism that the sages say. Rabbeinu Vaeira, one of the great Rishonim, has an interesting approach over here. He splits up these two verses. He says the first verse, which says, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Lama hareota lama zeh, why did you cause this negativity to befall this people? Lama zeh shelachtani, why did you send me? In that regard, he says Moshe Rabbeinu did nothing wrong. Moshe Rabbeinu did not sin, he did nothing wrong. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's chait? What was his sin? The next pasuk, when it states, "U'ma'az bati el Paro," from the time I've come to Paro to speak about your name, things have only got worse. And he says, according to the simple pshat, according to the simple meaning, the first verse is not sinful. What's the proof? The proof is that if it was sinful, Moshe Rabbeinu would never have used a similar language towards Hashem at a later stage. And yet we find in Sefer Bamidbar, after the Jewish people are involved in negativity, Moshe Rabbeinu turns around and he says to Hashem, this is in Bamidbar Perek Yud Aleph, Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, Lama erot el avdecha. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, why have you caused such harm to your servant? V'lama lo matzati chen b'einecha. Why did I not find favor in your eyes? Lasumet masak kol ha'am hazeh alai, by placing the heavy burden of this people upon me. Ha'anochi ariti et kol ha'am hazeh. Did I conceive this people? Did I give birth to them? That you say to me, carry them in your bosom. Where do I get meat from to give this people that are complaining that they don't have meat? So Hashem said again, why did you do negativity towards me? Says Moshe Rabbeinu towards Hashem. Says Rabbeinu Vaeira, if the first time would have been considered negative and sinful, then how come he did it another time? And therefore concludes Rabbeinu Vaeira that when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem, why did you do negativity to this people? Why did you do negativity to me? That's not considered sinful. What was considered sinful was the second part, when he says, Umayaz bati el Paro ledaber b'shmecha. And the question is, why not? Why, when Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Hashem, what's going on? Why do you do this to me? I can't handle it. Why are you doing this to this people? They can't handle it. That's not considered sinful. But when Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, from the time I've come to Paro, things have just got worse, that is considered sinful. And I believe the answer is to be found in Rabbeinu Bechaya. And that he says as follows. The difference between the first verse and the second verse is as follows. In the first verse, Moshe Rabbeinu is basically expressing his pain and frustration. He's saying, Hashem, I know you're just and everything you do is just, but I can't handle it. I'm feeling in pain. I feel the pain of the people. And later on in Bamidbar, he says, I cannot handle it, Hashem. I cannot handle this position. It's too much for me. I'm feeling like I can't handle it. He's expressing his feeling to Hashem. He's not questioning God's justice. He's just expressing his own pain to Hashem. That a person is allowed to do. That's valid. That's justified. But when Moshe Rabbeinu turns around and says, Hashem, I came to Pharaoh and I used your names and things have just got worse, then he's actually questioning Hashem's justice. That Hashem protested to. And that's why it's interesting, there's a midrash that says that because he says, May az batil Paro, from the time I've come to Paro, from then things have gone worse. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, I did tshuva when I said, Az yashir Moshe, when the Jewish people sang to Hashem. And we learn from here, I believe there's a very important lesson. It is okay for a person to express their anguish and pain to Hashem. Hashem, I feel I can't handle this. Hashem, it's too much for me. Hashem, I'm in pain. Hashem, please help. Hashem, I can't handle the situation. That one's allowed to do and what one should do. And one's supposed to have a relationship with Hashem. But to say to Hashem, it's not just, it's not right. You have done something wrong. You have been unjust. That a person is not allowed to do. And I think that there's a very important lesson that we are supposed to have a relationship with Hashem. We're supposed to communicate our feelings, our pain, our anxiety. At the same time, one has to realize and one should work on oneself to realize that everything Hashem does is for the good, and one's not allowed to question the justice. One should not question the justice of Hashem, because Hashem is ultimately just. That is considered a lack of faith, a lack of emunah, a lack of trust to question the justice of Hashem. This is something we need to work on. It's not an easy thing. That we should work on not doing, but expressing our feelings, our anxieties, our pain, the fact we feel we can't handle the situation. That is considered, or that we feel that somebody else cannot handle the situation, that is considered purely valid and part of a normal relationship with Hashem. I hope you will benefit from this lesson, and we should all talk to Hashem, as Rabbi Nachman says, on a daily basis, on a momentary basis. You're in the car, you're at the beach, you at work. Talk to Hashem constantly, and Bezrat Hashem, in that zchut, we will all have a wonderful relationship from Hashem and merit tremendous bracha v'hatzlacha. Shabbat shalom.